What's going on, everyone? Today we're going to be putting the Sony A7 III low light up against an iPhone's. Let's go. Now the settings that I'm using for these cameras, when it comes to the Sony A7 III, I'm going to be shooting in 4K 24 frames per second. Now the reason that I'm doing that is because that's going to give me the highest bit rate. Not to mention with the Sony, the 4K is actually downscaled 6K. And the reason that I'm shooting 24 frames per second is because there's no crop. If I were to jump to 30 frames per second, there would be a slight crop. Now, when it comes to the iPhone, I'm gonna be shooting in 4K 30 frames per second. Now, the reason I'm shooting 30 frames per second, with the actual software, camera software, I don't think you can shoot 24 frames per second. So if the iPhone footage looks a little bit slowed down, that is the reason, because I'm shooting 30 frames per second. Now we're gonna put these cameras through 3 tests. I wanted to keep the test fairly practical and how it would actually be if you're either vlogging with these cameras or if you're, say, shooting a short film with these cameras. So it's gonna be, an easy test, a medium test, and an extreme low light test. So without any further ado, let's jump into test 1. Let's go. Alright, so starting off right away, as you can see, the Sony A7 III is super clean. The lights that we're using for this shot pretty much just consist of lights that are in my room. No fancy lights, just practical lights. Now moving into the iPhone, definitely a lot dirtier than the Sony A7 III. Still technically usable, but I would try and avoid from using this at all if possible. And if we throw them side by side, as you can see on the left, the Sony is way cleaner than the iPhone there on the right. Now moving into the next shot, the Sony is shooting at ISO 1600, and I'm still, I believe, using Cine 2 in this, which is a flat picture profile, and it's still handling it extremely well and still super clean. Now the iPhone, as you can see, it is still really dirty, and I would definitely try and avoid from using a shot like this if possible. But it's still pulling out, a little bit of detail in the shadows there. Now, if we put them side by side, as you can see, the IS on the iPhone started to sort of get weird on the right, but as you can see, the Sony on the left is way cleaner than the iPhone there on the right. Now, getting into this, the Sony is crazy. This is ISO 2000, and I flipped it over to a picture profile, better suited for low light, and it is still super clean, and the only lights are the lights behind my monitor and the actual monitor itself, and it's handling it like a beast. As you can see, the iPhone really starts to fall apart here. It starts to completely blow out the highlights because it's trying to expose for those darker shadows, and there's pretty much no roll off from the highlights to the shadows, and it's just kind of, this is where it really starts to fall apart. But I mean, if you needed to use this, I mean, there is still a little bit of detail left in the shadows, but for the most part, I would try and avoid using that at all costs because that pretty much falls apart. But as you can see, the Sony A7 III on the left is still super clean, which is just insane, especially considering that I'm pretty much just using my monitor light. And now in this case, I took the A7 III to its limits, and as you can see, the color starts to fall apart a little bit. I'm at some crazy ISO, I don't even remember what it is, but the only lights that I'm using are the lights behind my computer monitor, and you can actually still see a detail on my face. So if you're shooting documentaries or something like that and you have to get a certain shot, this would be a really awesome camera for that. So that is it for this one. As you can see, the Sony A7 III is just a low light monster. These phones aren't doing too bad nowadays either, but of course the Sony definitely won that comparison. That's pretty much it for this one. If you did enjoy it, feel free to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button down below, and if you have any questions about this or any video ideas that you'd like to see, feel free to drop them right in the comments below. But until next time, I'll see you later.